Noah's Ark and the flood in the generations after Adam and Eve left Eden. Humanity spread across the earth, multiplying in number and in defiance. Each family carried traces of their ancestors, longing for communion with God, but also the seed of rebellion planted when the first commandment was broken. As the years stretched on, that seed grew into corruption deeper than any scar the soil had borne since the day Cain spilled his brother's blood. The descendants of Adam forgot the holiness of the one who had breathed life into them. They shaped gods in their own images of strength, desire, power, and worshipped their own hands. Creation's violence flourished like weeds in a neglected field, choking the last remnants of innocence. The earth was filled with cruelty, exploitation, and contempt for the Creator. Scripture says that the Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind was great, that every thought of their hearts was only evil continually. It grieved him. The sorrow was not the anger of a tyrant offended, but the heartbreak of a father whose children had chosen to defile themselves beyond recognition. It was in this world that Noah lived a man who stood apart, not because he was flawless, but because he walked with God. In an age of arrogance, he preserved humility. In a culture of self-indulgence, he revered the unseen. He raised his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth to work alongside him, building and planting and seeking righteousness in a generation that mocked every restraint. Then came the day the Lord spoke to Noah not in thunder, but in the quiet voice that had guided the faithful since Eden closed. The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. I will destroy them with the earth. Yet judgment was not the only word. God commanded Noah to build an ark, a vessel of staggering proportions, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. It would have a roof, 3 decks, and a single door in its side. This wooden sanctuary would carry life across the abyss of destruction. Imagine the astonishment of Noah's neighbors. Day after day, the framework grew taller, blocking the horizon, an enormous reminder of the prophecy no one wished to believe. They laughed, calling him mad. They called him arrogant, insisting God would never judge his creation so severely. They ridiculed the idea of a flood covering the mountains. But Noah persisted, hammering, sealing each plank with pitch, listening more to the voice of God than the scorn of men. When the ark stood complete, God gave further instructions. Noah was to bring into the vessel 2 of every kind of living creature, male and female, to keep their kinds alive. Of clean animals, 7 pairs. Of unclean, 2. Food was to be stored for his family and all the creatures. It is easy to reduce these commands to mere logistics, but in the obedience of Noah, something larger was happening. A testimony against the corruption outside. Each nail driven into the ark was a declaration that righteousness mattered, that judgment was real, and that salvation was possible for any who would heed the warning. At last the day arrived when the animals came. They did not come by Noah's will, but by the unseen hand of their Creator. 2 by 2, they entered. The heavy tread of elephants, the slither of serpents, the flapping of doves. Noah's family, solemn and watchful, led them into their compartments, the air filling with the mingled breath of beasts and men. Then the Lord himself closed the door. For 7 days, nothing happened. The sun rose and set. The people outside continued in their laughter, certain the door sealed Noah's fate as a fool. But on the 7th day, the sky darkened in a way no living man had ever seen. Rain fell first as a mist, then as sheets pouring from the heavens. The fountains of the great deep broke apart. Water erupted from the earth as it descended from the sky. Rivers swelled beyond their banks. The sea climbed over the shore. People scrambled for higher ground, clutching their children, pounding on the ark's door, pleading for entry. Inside, Noah and his family felt the tremors, the creaking of the massive timbers, the cries of the animals, the sorrow of knowing that every life outside was being swallowed by the deluge. They had no power to open what God had closed. For 40 days and nights, rain fell without mercy. The highest peaks vanished beneath rising waves. All flesh that moved on the earth perished, every creature that drew breath. Only Noah and those with him remained alive. In the silence that followed, the ark drifted over a lifeless world. It was an unthinkable loneliness, yet within its walls beat the heart of a promise that life would begin again. After 150 days, God remembered Noah. The language does not mean that God had ever forgotten, but that the time appointed for mercy had arrived. The waters began to recede. The subterranean fountains were stopped, and the windows of heaven were closed. Slowly, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Though land appeared, Noah did not rush to leave the vessel. He sent out a raven, which flew back and forth, never returning. Then he sent a dove. The first time, it found no resting place and returned. 7 days later, he sent it again, and it brought back a freshly plucked olive leaf, a sign that new life had begun to grow. After another 7 days, he released the dove, and it did not return. At last, God spoke. Go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons and their wives. Bring out every living thing with you, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply. When Noah stepped onto the dry ground, he did not first build shelter or prepare food. His first act was worship. He built an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings from every clean animal and bird. The scent rose into the heavens as a testimony of gratitude and reverence. And God blessed Noah and his sons. "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth," he said, echoing the command given to Adam. Yet this time, it came with an awareness of what sin could do if left unchecked. Then God established a covenant, one that extended beyond Noah to all generations. Never again would he destroy the earth by flood. As a sign of this everlasting promise, he set his bow in the clouds. Every time rain fell and the rainbow appeared, it would stand as a reminder that judgment was not the final word. Mercy would prevail. This was not a simple story of destruction and survival. It was a revelation of the seriousness of sin, the cost of grace, and the faithfulness of God to rescue a remnant, even when all seemed lost. Noah's life after the flood was not perfect. He planted a vineyard, drank of its wine, and lay uncovered in his tent. His sons discovered him, and what followed was a moment of shame and blessing, intertwined a reminder that though God had cleansed the earth, the seed of human weakness remained. Yet even so, the line of Noah continued. From Shem would come Abraham, and from Abraham, a nation. From that nation, in the fullness of time, would come one greater than Noah, Redeemer, who would save not with an ark of gopher wood but with his own blood. The story of the flood is ancient, but it speaks across millennia. It teaches that the Maker of all things will not ignore evil forever. It reminds us that when the storms of judgment come, the only refuge is in the mercy God Himself provides.